Hello and welcome to another booktube video from me, Martha May Books. Today I have for you my review of the Mr. B's Emporium of Reading Delights reading subscription service. Mr. B's Emporium of Reading Delights is an independent bookshop in Bath. They run a subscription service where you can get either hardbacks or paperbacks for 3 months, 6 months or 11 months, in which they send you a book tailored to your reading tastes every month for the amount of months that you have the subscription service for. This was a present from my grandmother for Christmas 2019. I'm not sponsored by Mr. B's, if anyone's wondering. I just thought that it would make an interesting video, and I thought that people might want to see an in-depth review of their subscription service and how well they do for recommendations. I have the Mr. B's reading subscription service for 6 months. I have only been receiving books so far for 3 months, but I thought that this was a good point within the subscription to make a video about it. I think if I was to do all 6 months in one video, it would be a very long video, so I thought I would split it up. So I'm going to read out my answers to the quiz that Mr. B sends out when you first receive a reading subscription service. This quiz is basically about your personal reading taste, what you like, what you don't like, and I thought it would be useful for you guys to know what my answers were to the quiz, so that you know if Mr. B's is giving me good recommendations based on my answers. I thought I would start by reading the quiz to you. Mr. B's sent me my answers to the quiz. I think they call it a survey, to be honest. They sent me my answers to the survey, but I don't have the questions, I only have the answers. Okay, so the first question that I'm going to tell you about is favourite authors. So I just gave them a list of my favourite authors: Michelle Paver, Robin Hobb, Caroline Lee, Becky Chambers, Sally Green, Madeline Miller, Andrea Levy, Small Island, because I've only read one book by her, but I really enjoyed it, Elizabeth McNeil, Stuart Turton, Imogen Hermes Gower, Octavia E. Butler, Claire Fuller, and Brandon Sanderson. The next question was, and I think it's a really fun question, was if you had to get on a train right now, which one book would you take? And let me know in the comments below what one book you would take if you had to get on a train right now. But I answered Thin Air by Michelle Paver or The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs by Steve Brucetti, because I can't answer just one. Then I listed a whole bunch of books that I'd read recently and what I thought of them. I'm not going to read them all out because it's a long list and I don't care to. I listed some genres that I enjoy: fantasy, sci-fi, gothic and speculative fiction, and I also then said a genre that I don't like, which is romance. So here's where I'm confused, and it comes up later in the video that I don't remember what I answered for these questions. I don't know. I'll explain. So first of all, it said there was a big list of things that are important in books, and it said select from this list things that are important to you. And I answered atmosphere, character and plot. And then I have here on my little grid time shifts and letters. And this is in a separate box than atmosphere, characters and plot. And in my mind, of what I always say I dislike in books is time shifts and letters. But I also like time shifts and letters. I know, I know it doesn't make any sense. I don't know, therefore, if I have put whether I like time shifts and letters or whether I don't like them. And it comes up later in the video, which is why I'm telling you now, I do not know whether I said I like them or not. I would assume that I said I like them, and you'll find out why from the books that I ended up receiving. I think I said I like them. So then they asked, is there anything that you would like to read more of? And I answered, I've read some, but I would like to read more cozy but spooky sci-fi similar to Becky Chambers, because I feel like that's very niche. And then I also said I would also like to read from more Black, Indigenous and Inuit authors. They asked if I like non-fiction, and I listed some non-fiction that I enjoy: light science non-fiction like The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs, Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. I like history surrounding mysteries and true crime. I also like accounts of extreme environments, the deep and dark summit. I also like natural history about sea creatures like Other Minds by Peter Godfrey Smith, but would also be happy to read about other weird animals. I think they asked my favourite non-fiction author, and I said Caitlin Doherty, Ask a Mortician, here on YouTube. And then some topics that I like reading about in non-fiction. So I said natural history, octopuses and sea creatures, dinosaurs, evolution within front of me, oh, dinosaurs, and space, mountaineering, adventuring, and death. Then it was where you like to read. I said The Garden. There was a question about what your mastermind topic would be. your specialist subject, things you like to do in your spare time. I'm not going to tell you my answers to all of these because it'd just be long and no one cares. Those were my answers to the survey that Mr. Beast sends out. So what I feel like they would take from that is fantasy, gothic, natural history, cozy sci-fi, things like that. I feel like it's pretty clear the kind of things that I enjoy. What you're going to see now throughout the rest of this video are little clips that I filmed throughout my subscription. So my subscription started in September. So from September onwards, the 3 books that I got in the 3 months from September until November, what I thought of them, whether I thought that they were good recommendations for me or not. I recently had my email from them. So they give you a couple of options. They say no spoiler email, where you just don't get an email. You can have a spoiler email where they tell you the author, or you can have a spoiler email where it goes to a friend or family member who knows your reading taste and can tell them if you've already read the book, because that was a big concern of mine, is like, right, but if you send the book and I've read it, like, what? So that's the way that they try and avoid people already having read the book that they're going to send. I opted for them sending me the email with the author's name. So the author is N.K. Jemisin for my first book, which is coming in September. I have never read anything by N.K. Jemisin, and I've said this. It fits well, I think, with liking fantasy and wanting to read by Black authors. I'm looking forward to receiving it. I don't know if they're going to send me an email to say that it's shipped, or whether I just sort of hang around until it turns up. I don't know, but I'm going to read it in September because my plan with this, I want to try and read these every month when they come. Wish me luck. I'm looking forward to see what it is, because the only N.K. Jemisin that I know is The City We Became, which I think is where the city is a character. And if they send me that, which they might do, I don't think I'll be excited to read it, but we'll see what comes. Okay, so what I have here is my first book from my Mr. B subscription. So all I know about this is that it should be by N.K. Jemisin. That's it. Let's see what book they sent me. This is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. So I've heard of N.K. Jemisin, and I also have been interested in reading something by her. I think this lines up, like, just on first glance, I think it lines up quite well with the form that I filled out that you will have just heard me talk about. So I'm going to have a look at this on Goodreads. It starts with the great red rift across the heart of the world's sole continent, spewing ash that blots out the sun. It starts with death and a murdered son and a missing daughter. It starts with betrayal and a long dormant wounds rising up to fester. This is the stillness, a land long familiar with catastrophe, where the power of the earth is wielded as a weapon, and where there is no mercy. That sounds so cool. I'm interested to see what they mean by the earth is used against people. What I'm a bit curious of, is this classified as YA, would we say? Or is it adult fantasy? Definitely not YA. Okay, cool. That's fine. I mean, I don't have anything against YA fantasy. I've just rated one, like, between 4 to 5 stars. I like it, but it's good to know what you're going into. So that's really cool. So I'm going to read that next. I'm currently reading Middle Game by Shauna Maguire, which is completely unrelated to this. I'm excited about this. I love me a bit of post-apocalyptic, and I've not read a lot of it, so right, I'm gonna go put this on my bookshelf then. Bye. I thought it was a YA. It's not a YA. Definitely not a YA. I gave this 4.5 stars, and basically it follows 3 characters, 2 women and a girl. It follows how their lives all linked together, and follows one of them through a season, which is basically a massive natural disaster that basically causes a 5th season, which is a massive winter where it's very likely that humankind will die out and they have to survive through that. There's quite a lot of world building in this and a lot of character building in this, and not a lot of plot, which is why I gave it 4.5 stars. If there was just a little bit more plot, I would have given it a 5, but just for me personally, I prefer to have more of a journey and more of a story. I mean, no, that's wrong. I mean, like, more happening than learning about the world. Well, not than, as well as. But I think off of my survey, this is a good recommendation. It's a high fantasy, with an interesting magic system, which I like. Like, I don't like it if it's just like, oh, magic. Like, no, they have power over earthquakes. I would say this is a good recommendation based off of my survey, because I didn't really say, I think I said in the survey actually that I like world building, character building and plot. And so they ticked 2 of these, and there is a plot in this. Like, don't go into it thinking that nothing happens. A lot happens. It's just, it felt like, because there's time jumps in this, which I think I said I was okay with, but I might have said I didn't like. I can't remember on my survey, but yeah, so there's time jumps in this, and so you're learning a lot about the world and the characters throughout time rather than just one singular storyline. I think it was a good recommendation. I'm pleased that I've read it. I'm hoping that there won't ever be one of these Mr. B's books where it's like, oh, I really hate that I had to read that. But so far, so good. So I'm just actually going to see if we can get the survey. I'm pretty sure I said, for things that I like in books, atmosphere, character and plot. A lot of atmosphere, a lot of character. Plot, definitely. And I think that I think it's a trilogy, but as the series goes on, I think we get more plot because, you know, it's a series, so you don't want all the plot in the first book. And then I think I said that I don't like time shifts and letters. I actually don't mind time shifts or letters. I think it was that I said I don't like it, but I feel like I wouldn't have said that I like letters. There are time shifts in this, but it wasn't like a deal breaker for me. In fact, I enjoyed the time shifts and I enjoyed figuring out the connections between the characters. It was a good recommendation. I had an email on the 17th of September asking if I'd ever read anything by Laura Purcell, which I've not. I've had a couple of Laura Purcell books out from the library before as an ebook, and I've not read them, but I don't think that's the fault of the book. I think it's just I'm not a big fan of reading ebooks. Again, I think that that is quite a close match to what I've said I like, which is gothic. I feel like Laura Purcell writes quite gothic books. Fingers crossed I like that one too. My next Mr. B's subscription has just arrived, and it came wrapped so nicely. They have like their special boxes back because they lost them during lockdown. So yeah, I'm gonna open it. All I know is that it's by Laura Purcell. So, one of 2 options, I believe. That's so sad for me. That was so hard to open. Get it out. This is so cute. They've like got a little case, and on the front it says, "Last night I dreamt I went to Mr. B's again." Rebecca quote done about Mr. B's. And then got a little fasten here. This is so cute. When they were like, oh, would you mind getting your subscription without the special wrapping? I was like, yeah, I don't care. I care. And I'm glad that I did get to see this special wrapping. This is glorious. Okay. I'm going to tip this out now. There's more wrapping. This is so cute. Then it's got a little cover on it, which kind of reminds me of the Mercies. And it's got a little gold stamp on it. This is so cute. Okay, I'm going to take the cover off now and see what it is. Bone China. Cool. This is Bone China by Laura Purcell. I love this cover. I've not seen this one. I've seen the white cover. Oh, she's got 3 books, and here I am like one of 2 options. She's got 3 books, so that shows how much I know. I have had out from the library before, I think, The Silent Companions, and I think I've had this out as well, and I've not read either of them because they were ebooks, and I'm really bad at reading ebooks. I'm going to read the back and see what this is about, because even though I know they tell me a spoiler email the author, but I don't look up the author or any of their books because I think that kind of ruins the fun. So let's see what it says. More Voren. More Voren House, Cornwall. Consumption has ravaged Louise Pinecroft's family, leaving her and her father alone and heartbroken, but Dr. Pinecroft has plans for a revolutionary experiment to relaunch his medical career. I didn't know that this was the premise. 40 years later, Hester Y arrives at More Voren House to take up a position as a nurse to the now partially paralysed and almost entirely mute Miss Pinecroft. Hester has fled to Cornwall to try and escape her past, but soon she discovers that her new home may be just as dangerous as her last. Okay, well, I think I only knew the premise of The Silent Companions, but this sounds cool. Again, it's got time jumps in it, which maybe I did say I liked, because I feel like I must have done for them to give me two that have time jumps in. But it's pretty. It's got like a cool, like, it's got like, oh, I know what it is. It's like the crackle that's on. Oh, there you go. Now you can see it. Laura Purcell does creeping menace like no one else. Once again, I'm sleeping with the lights on. Ooh, I didn't know it was like proper spooky. Do I think that Bone China by Laura Purcell fits in with my things that I said I like? I would say so, because I said a lot of gothic novels, and I said spooky but not terrifying. This guy's saying sleep with the lights on, so maybe it is kind of terrifying. So I do think it's another good recommendation. Obviously I won't know for sure until I've read it. It might be so boring. But yeah, I think that they've definitely picked up on what I'm putting down. Anyway, as you will have just seen, I was sent Bone China by Laura Purcell by Mr. Bees. This was the October pick for my Mr. Bees subscription, and I rated it 4 stars. So this follows 2 women in a house in Cornwall 40 years apart. First woman that we follow is Hester Y, who is running away from her previous mistress under a cloud, is going to Mavoran House to be a nurse and a lady's maid to Louise Pinecroft, and then we follow Louise Pinecroft 40 years in the past when she was a young woman first coming to Mavoran House, and her helping her father with his attempt to cure tuberculosis in the caves underneath Mavoran House. And I really enjoyed it. So I think that Mr. Bees recommended this one to me because it's gothic, which I said I liked. It's got elements of fantasy potentially and folklore, and it's quite creepy, but it isn't horror. So I think that's why they recommended it to me. First of all, a lot happens in this book, and it feels like it could have been 2 books. And as I've said before, I don't know if I've said that I really like time jumps or if I said I really dislike time jumps. I don't remember whether I said I liked them or not, because I don't feel particularly strongly either way about them. But the 2 books that I've received from Mr. Bees so far have time jumps, which would suggest to me that I couldn't possibly have said that I disliked them, and that I must have said I liked them, because this has a time jump and the 5th season has a time jump. So I feel like they must know. But it definitely felt like it could have been 2 books. So the first half of the book, almost the first half of the book, you get Hester Y's story and all of this spooky stuff happening, and then alternating for the rest of the book you also get Louise Pinecroft's story, which I liked. I saw that some people didn't like that so much, but I liked it. I also saw on the front here it says Laura Purcell does creeping menace like no one else. Once again, I'm sleeping with the lights on. I did not find it that scary. There was only one point when I was reading it where I was like, I'm gonna stop because I might be frightened, which was the start of the very last part of this. Louise, throughout the book, is kind of keeping vigil on some china, and Hester decides to join her to keep that vigil. And I decided at midnight, I'm going to stop reading now and I will start reading again in the daytime, because it has the potential to get creepy, because it hadn't yet reached a point where I felt like I needed to sleep with the lights on. So I felt like that must happen at some point in the book, and it didn't. I didn't think it was, I thought it was creepy and I thought it was menacing, but I didn't think it was scary. I liked the writing. I am not really one to comment on writing. As long as it's legible and I can enjoy it and understand what's happening, I'm happy. But I did enjoy the writing in this. In Louise Pinecroft's point of view, we learn about the cure for tuberculosis that her and her father are trying to discover and work on. And the cure that they've decided upon is to put some men with tuberculosis in a cave by the sea and to try and cure them in that cave. I personally am not a medical professional, but feel like that was a bad idea. However, that's what they choose to do. And the cave was so spooky. There's also a lot in here about folklore. So there's a lot of mentions of fairies and also knockers, which are like in Cornish mines. There was a belief that the miners could hear knocking within the mines, and that those were goblins, fairies, who would steal the men away. I would say that this was a good recommendation from Mr. B's. It's gothic, it's kind of spooky, it's got folklore, which I don't even know if they knew that I like, but I do. I thought it was really good. So, another good one, Mr. B's. Can't wait for next month. Hello, oh, it's flashing at me. Hello, it's me. I've had an email from Mr. B's, so I'm gonna open it on here and see what it says. My battery's flashing at me, so maybe this will all be rubbish. Come on, Google, load, my battery's flashing. Hi Martha, hope you're keeping well. In some recently blah 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 blah, they've updated their spoiler. If you click the button below, you'll be able to see which author we've chosen to wrap and post this month. Okay, so they've got like a whole system going on. Let's view it. Oh, what have I done? Absolute chaos. Okay, it's loading. Oh, we get a whole letter. Okay, Amy has chosen to send you something by Hallie Rubenhold. Are we safe to proceed with this choice? Okay. I've literally never heard of Hallie Rubenhold, so yes. Please send this book. Thank you for responding. Okay, there we are. Hallie Rubenhold. I'm not going to look them up because I knew N.K. Jemisin, which was my first book. I knew of Laura Purcell, which was my second book. I have never heard the name Hallie, whoever it was, Rubenhold. So I'm not going to look them up. I'm just going to wait for the book to arrive. This has been out of focus the whole time. There we are. That's better. Right, I'm going to put my battery on charge. Book 3 has arrived. This is my book for November from Mr. B's, and in the last clip you saw me discover that the author of this book is Hallie Rubenhold, who I claimed I had no idea who that was. I can now confirm that I do have an idea who that is. So Hallie Rubenhold is the author of The Five, which is about the 5 women that were murdered by Jack the Ripper. I know this because I have had the audiobook of The Five out from the library, and I think I've listened to probably the equivalent of about 30 pages, but I'll let you know because I definitely didn't finish it. The reason that I didn't finish it was because, to be honest, I don't know. I'm really bad at listening to audiobooks unless I have literally nothing else to listen to, and so in all likelihood it was just that I couldn't find enough to do whilst listening to the audiobook and just decided I couldn't get through it. It could also be because I actually studied Jack the Ripper while I was doing history GCSE, and I do think that's where my interest in true crime came from, but it was a very morbid year. Okay. My dog hates this. Great. Got the, I just call it the Mercies paper. It looks like it's the Mercies. It's what I thought it was. Okay, cool. I am excited to read this. I think there was just something going on with me in audiobooks, like always. The Five, The Untold Lives of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper by Hallie Rubenhold. And I did say in my quiz when I initially started the subscription that I would be interested in some non-fiction, specifically around true crime and death. So I feel like this is a good recommendation just off of those things. You will have just seen me unboxing The Five by Hallie Rubenhold. I have now read it. So I gave this 5 stars, and this is the first 5 stars that I've given to a book that has been sent to me by Mr. B's. The 5th season I gave 4 stars, Bone China I gave 4 stars, and this one 5. Oh, and it's called The Five. How fun. This is a non-fiction book, which I really appreciated because I did say on the quiz that I would be interested in some non-fiction, and this is one that I actually got the audiobook for and then decided not to listen to on audio. It was so good. I loved it because what it wasn't, and what I was concerned that it would be, it wasn't all of the gory details of how the guts were spread around the room and where the uteruses went and all the letters that Jack the Ripper sent. It wasn't any of that. It was purely focused on the women's lives, on what it was like to be a woman in Victorian England. And what was so interesting was that we got to see so many different walks of lives. Like, if you had to guess at the lives of the victims of Jack the Ripper, you would not guess that this is what the women did. Just such full, interesting lives. It humanised the canonical 5 so much, and it was so interesting. And as a unsolved mystery, unsolved murder, true crime case, I'm not particularly interested in Jack the Ripper himself, and I do think it is because people forget so much in all true crime about the victims and forget that they were people. I wasn't interested in hearing another narrative about Jack the Ripper, and this was not that. So I think that they chose that really well. It was more about the women before Jack the Ripper even ruined everyone's lives. It was kind of more like a social history, and it was so interesting and I loved it. So thank you, Mr. Bees. So far, I'm 3 months into my Mr. Bees reading subscription and I am loving it. It's so fun to get sent a book every month. You get a book every month that someone who has taken the time to understand and know your reading tastes has chosen for you. So far, in relation to my quiz, they have sent me 1 high fantasy, 1 gothic literary fiction, kind of historical fiction, and 1 non-fiction about crime and murder, but with social commentary in there. They are 3 books that I have already chosen for myself. So the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin, while I hadn't picked up the 5th season by myself, I had put on my Waterstones wish list the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. Bone China I had already had out from the library as an ebook and decided not to read it because I'm bad at reading ebooks. And the 5 I've already had out from the library as an audiobook and didn't listen to it because I'm bad at listening to audiobooks. And so I feel like the recommendations have been very close to something that I would choose myself, but hadn't committed so much to buy or get out from the library. So they're really good recommendations. Thank you so much for watching my Mr. Bees review. Well done you if you've gotten all the way to the end of this video, because it is a long one. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know. If you've read any of these books, also please let me know what you thought of them in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video in general, please do like and subscribe to my channel because I want book friends.